Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm Jeff Howe, joined by Gerry Hamilton. We're going to talk about Cam Coleman and look at the four schools in the mix for him and why he'd be a fit at each one of them. This edition of On Texas Football is brought to you by our friends over at Hays City Store. We'll tell you more about Hays City Store here in just a little bit. But, Gerry, let's go ahead and run down the four finalists, if you will, for Cam Coleman. Texas A&M, Alabama, and Texas Tech. He's visited all four schools, wrapped up his Alabama visit on Saturday. Gerry, when you look at why it makes sense for these schools, we'll start with Texas and run the rest down.
Yeah, I think from a Texas perspective, obviously we're going to talk about the quarterbacks later in the show, but Arch Manning, I mean, tremendous quarterback, great exposure at the University of Texas for a final year in college. He would be part of some probably pretty sweet NIL deals with Arch Manning. There's the offensive Steve Sarkisian. There's the chance to play with a really good quarterback, a good offensive scheme that's very wide receiver friendly. It would give him an opportunity to do something he hasn't had in his time at Auburn, is have a really good downfield thrower of the football that can put the ball in his area code in really good positions. If you watch much Auburn football this year, obviously that was not happening from the quarterback position. He was behind the defense regularly and had to slow down on routes, fight to come back, fight through difficult situations and contact to make plays on underthrown balls. It was not an ideal situation for an elite wide receiver. Then there's also the SEC. I mean, look, he in this recruitment coming out of high school was committed to A&M, then ended up signing with Auburn. This has been SEC through and through here, so I think they have that go. Texas has that going for them as well, which two other teams do in this recruitment as well. But I think, look, I think with Texas, it's offensive scheme, wide receiver friendly, a lot of successful wide receivers out of Texas, Xavier Worthy, A.D. Mitchell, Matthew Golden, two transfers that went drafted highly. I think Coleman's a first rounder wherever he goes, barring injury. More than likely he's that talented. But then just playing that SEC, really good parts around him, good offense, high-level quarterback, best thrower of the deep ball of any quarterback he's considering on a team.
Gerry, let's go to Alabama. That's where he visited last. It's the home state. You just ran down a couple of factors working in favor of the Crimson Tide in this one.
Yeah, I think this is was his longest visit, actually, too. Time on campus. Again, what is it? From the state of Alabama. He was once committed to A&M, ended up staying close to home at Auburn. He's a Phoenix, the city central high school graduate. Phoenix City, not far from the Auburn campus in terms of a recruiting perspective, right? Then you have Derek Nix, who was part of his recruitment at Auburn, who's now at Alabama. Isaiah Horton's gone from Alabama. Interesting. Just to put that one out there. Look, Kalen DeBoer, great offensive scheme, very wide receiver friendly, tremendous play calling staff. So I think there's some things there with Alabama too. And look, I know this is the NIL day. I mean, look, Parker Livingston leaves Texas and goes to Oklahoma. So 10 years ago, these things would have never happened. But Cam Coleman, if he picked Bama, would have a chance to it would be crazy on Iron Bowl next year, but he have a chance to leave a legacy in his own home state, even though it may not be the legacy that would have happened 10 years ago, but due to the transfer portal. So I think there's some, and from a NIL perspective, I mean, Alabama, wearing the Alabama uniform, I mean, I think as a top wide receiver in next year's NFL draft, along with Jeremiah Smith, I think there's some things that would play into that favorably for him. We'll get into the quarterbacks later. You'd have to trust an inexperienced quarterback at Alabama, and do you do that in your final year of college? We'll see.
Gerry, when you look at Texas A&M, you mentioned he was committed to the Aggies at one point, and A&M, I know it's going to be a different offense with Colin Klein moving on. It'll be somebody else calling the plays, but they did get a lot of production from two transfer wide receivers this past season with Mario Craver coming in from Mississippi State and Casey Concepcion from NC State.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a first-time play caller in Holman Wiggins, but Holman Wiggins has recruited Cam Coleman for years, right, dating back to Alabama before he came to Texas A&M. So there is that. There's a built-in relationship. Look, if you're A&M, it's pretty simple what you're selling Cam Coleman, because what are people going to say? Well, A&M they were short, intermediate routes, didn't throw the ball down the field a lot, right? So can Marcel get the ball down the field to a wide receiver. We did the Bethel Roman a few times, but the sell for A&M is pretty simple, man. You're in the SEC. You wanted to come here once before, by the way. You were committed here. You already liked the smaller college town environment than the bigger city. And then, oh, by the way, you will give us the downfield threat, passing threat. And I say us, I'm talking about A&M, Texas fans. Give us the downfield passing threat, the vertical passing threat that we have been lacking. That is A&M's sell, and that's why I'm using us, them, kind of that's their sell in this, is you can be the difference for our program from one year to the next, because you'll bring us something we lack this year. That's A&M's selling point. And, the other selling point is, hey, you've been committed here before, and it's obvious you like the smaller college town environments, but I don't know how much that's going to ring true at the end of the day, because name the smallest pro city. Name the smallest pro city. You're going to have to go to big cities when you get to the NFL.
Jerry, Lubbock fits the bill of a small college town, and they just spent a lot of money, reportedly, in the transfer portal to fill their quarterback position. What's the sell, Jerry? What's the why for Texas Tech and Cam Coleman?
Well, here it is. I'm talking from a Tech perspective again, because people are going to take this video and how I say it wrong. It's the Tech thing is easy. We didn't score. We need you. We think you with Brandon Sorsby will be the difference in us advancing to play for a national championship next year. That's a pretty easy sell for Texas Tech when you get shut out in a college football playoff. You go get a quarterback, your top quarterback target, and now you're telling this guy, hey, look, you're our number one wide receiver target. You can absolutely be the difference for us, who struggled to score a point in the college football playoff. So that is the easy sell for Texas Tech. And I also think, look, I think if Cam Coleman turns down Texas Tech, he'll have turned down the biggest NIL offer based on what we've seen from Cody Gamble.
Jerry, we'll talk about the quarterbacks at these four schools on the other side, but right now, let's thank our sponsor for this edition of On Texas Football and tell everybody about our friends over at Hayes City Store.
Look, after Cam Coleman picks his NIL, picks his college team, which is going to be very NIL driven, he's going to be eating good now for the next 10 or 11 months. So if it ends up being the Texas Longhorns, Cam, and you watch this Hayes City Store, there are very few restaurants you go to that they are just immediately special. That is Hayes City Store. It's scratch-made Texas comfort food. They've got their famous truck stop enchiladas, award-winning chicken fried steak, and homemade desserts. All of it's absolutely delicious. All of it's from scratch. There's also live music 6 nights a week with 50 beer taps, ice-cold long necks, and tasty margaritas. There are 13 TVs alone in their ice house, perfect for game days, and they even have brunch served from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. every Sunday. Hayes City Store is also dog-friendly except one, and they have a tree net for kids. Don't mix the two. Join the folks at Hayes City Store and bring your whole crew. For more information, check the website at hayescitystoretx.com. Hayes City Store, it's uniquely Texas.
Jerry, when we look at the quarterbacks at these four schools, Arch Manning, obviously the returning starter for Texas. Texas A&M brings back a returning starter in Marcel Reed. We just talked about it. Texas Tech went to the transfer portal to get Brendan Sorsby. And you mentioned it with Alabama. That may be the biggest negative for Alabama is even though Keelan Russell, we all know he's really talented, he lacks experience.
Yeah.
Jerry, if it comes down to quarterback play at these four schools, it would seem like it's a clear edge for Texas.
For a multitude of reasons, right? We hit on earlier in the video, Arch Manning is a really talented deep ball thrower. And that is something that Cam Coleman in his 2 years at Auburn did not have. So that's got to be appealing on some level. If we say, here's NIL, let's set it to the side and let's focus on what do these universities have, these football programs have. And at quarterback, that's got to be very appealing to a guy like Cam Coleman who will have 1 year left in college. This is not a guy that's thinking about 2 years. He's thinking about how do I maximize my final year, enhance my draft stock the most, and get to and go be a top 10 pick if I have a great year in a very solid and deep draft. And I'm not saying he's going to be top 10, but can you elevate yourself to that? So Arch Manning has that from a quarterback perspective. I think there's other really good parts around Arch Manning as well, with a Ryan Wingo, with an Emmett Mosley. So it's not all on Cam Coleman's plate, and that actually helps free him up because there's other really good established players around him. Texas has added a portal piece and Raleek Brown at running back. So there's some positive there in that regard with Arch Manning. And then you get to the scheme that Arch Manning plays in and how wide receiver friendly that is and how good Arch has become second half of the season in distributing that football within that scheme. So I think there's a lot of things with Arch Manning in Texas from that quarterback perspective, which also bleeds into your offensive scheme, that have to look very, very good to Cam Coleman's eye. And then something I mentioned earlier, I think if you play on a team with Arch Manning next year and you're Cam Coleman, there's some real unique NIL opportunities probably out there for you.
Absolutely. Jerry, as we wrap this up, if you're Steve Sarkisian and Cam Coleman's taking his 4 visits, next is a decision, do you feel like you did everything you possibly could to make this happen, and now you've just got to let the chips fall where they may?
Yes, I do. I think I hate that Texas hates the terms, but it's true. Texas fans hate the terms, all in. Texas has been all in on this recruitment since day one. And look, that doesn't mean they're for sure going to have the highest NIL bid, but they're going to be extremely, extremely competitive. And maybe they do, maybe they don't at the end of the day, but they're going to be extremely competitive in this race with everything they have to offer. Cam Coleman.
Jerry, we'll see how it happens. Thank you for the knowledge and expertise as always. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes for producing it. Thank you to our friends at Hayes City Store for sponsoring it. If you're not a member, over at ontexasfootball.com, first-time members can take advantage of our Portal Madness special today. $1 for your first month of access at ontexasfootball.com. We can only cover so much here on the channel. Every bit of information we get goes up on the message board at ontexasfootball.com the minute we get it. And again, first-time users, take advantage of our Portal Madness special and get your first month of access at ontexasfootball.com for just $1. For Jerry, for Matthew, for the entire On Texas Football staff, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And until next time, hook 'em.